What if the reason you're feeling stuck and stressed in your business isn't the economy or your team or that latest competitor, but what's going on in your own head? In every industry, you see a lot of business owners who are struggling and a very small percentage of business owners who are absolutely smashing it and enjoying the process. So after playing business in hard mode myself for 5 years and getting completely burnt out, I started studying the business owners who were making it look easy. And what did I realize from studying these business owners? That they're not just lucky, that they haven't had it handed to them on a plate, and that it's not what they've got what matters, but how they think. So if you're ready to stop playing business in hard mode and you're willing to start thinking differently about your business, let's jump into today's video and find out what we can learn from the business owners that make it look. The real problem in most businesses isn't the economy, isn't staff being hard to motivate, isn't changing technology. It's the owner, it's us and our mindsets. And I was forced to learn this lesson quite painfully because I got so burnt out that I hit depression in my first business. And I knew I had nobody to blame but myself. But before that, before I'd started this business and had it for 5 years, I'd served in the military for 5 years. I'd done 2 tours of Afghanistan. I'd worked on deep sea fishing boats off the south coast of Australia, pulling 20 hours a day sometimes. I'd lived on monasteries in Thailand and in the Himalayas of Nepal. So I'd done some pretty gnarly experiences, and I thought I'd proven to myself that I had quite a high level of kind of mental toughness. Yet when I owned a business, I ended up stressed and depressed. So to me, that forced me to realize and to look into the unique mental challenges of owning a business. And when I got burnt out after my first business, I thought, right, I don't really have an option. I don't want to go back to having a job. I want to own a business. So I need to figure out how to enjoy owning a business. And I need to figure out why I got burnt out and what I need to do to stop that. And what I did was I started looking into the inspiring entrepreneurs and business owners, big and small, famous, not famous, and look at the common traits amongst all of them. And what I realized was that they were dealing with exactly the same challenges the majority of us are dealing with, the exact same challenges in the economy and with staff and all this other stuff. Yet they were thinking about those problems completely differently. And when I looked into this and understood it, it changed the whole way that I think about and approach business, because it made me realize that actually for us to enjoy business and for us to get the results that we're capable of, we don't need to fix everything. We just need to think differently up here. So that's what I want to take you through in this video, some of those key insights on how to actually think about your business and the journey of business so that you can start enjoying it today, not in the future when you've achieved some magical goals. So let's start off with looking into the most common psychological or emotional thinking patterns that get in the way of us business owners enjoying our businesses. And before we jump into that, we just need to understand one little thing about the human mind. Homo sapiens, that's us, we've been around for about 300,000 years. We don't know exactly, but that's what kind of the common scientific community consensus is. And until 10,000 years ago, so for 290,000 years, we were hunter-gatherers. So about 10,000 years ago, we figured out agriculture. So for 95% of our existence on this planet, our minds have been working to keep us alive in an environment that's very difficult to survive in. So the daily focus of our minds has been to keep us alive, survival. And what that means is that our minds have evolved certain traits, certain ways of thinking that contribute to us staying alive in an environment that's difficult to survive in. And why that's important to understand is that will lead to you as a human doing certain things on autopilot and thinking in certain patterns on autopilot. And what we realize when we're going to go through this video is that many of those things that are subconscious and useful for survival are very counterintuitive to us enjoying business and thriving in business. So we need to understand that. Okay, so the first of the 3 major thinking/emotional patterns that make us unhappy in business is thinking that problems are bad. And this is something I talk to all of the owners that we work with about, and I've had to work with them myself a lot, and all the leadership teams that we work with. It's seeing that problems are bad and that they need to be dealt with right now. That will make your life or your journey as a business owner and growing your business miserable. Why? Because all businesses have problems all the time. And when you fix those problems, they get replaced with new problems. So problems are a never-ending part of owning business. When you go into business ownership, you are signing up to deal with problems consistently for the whole time that you're in that business. And you might be sat there thinking, well, no, not once you get big enough. Once you've solved so many problems, then you can relax once the money's coming in, etc. But think about Google, right? So if we take it to the nth degree, like Google is probably one of the biggest, most well-known, profitable companies in the world. Don't quote me on the profit, but I know that they're very high earning and high profit. They are probably sat there now worrying about AI and thinking about how they're going to stop AI from making them irrelevant, especially in the search space, right? And that's because this new piece of technology has come along that's been made available to the masses via ChatGPT, and then record amounts of people have started to use AI to search as opposed to Google. I know Google are now incorporating AI, but my point is that no matter how big you are, no matter how successful you are, no matter how well established you are, there's always going to be problems. So if you see problems as bad and that you've got to deal with them right now and that you can't relax on the weekends and you can't go on holiday and you can't go to sleep tonight until you solve those problems, you're destined to be miserable in business. And you tell yourself that once you've solved them, you keep telling yourself that once you've solved so many or you've sorted this thing out, that then you can relax. It's a fallacy. You'll never be there, because as soon as you've replaced those problems, they get replaced with new ones. You're still stressed. Now, the reason for this is, if you think about it, when you're a hunter-gatherer, 290,000 years, you see a thing that is of danger, that's a problem, i.e. the food source isn't there that we normally get, or there's an animal approaching me that doesn't look very friendly. You see any of these problems, you have to deal with them there and then, because they are a threat to your life. So that's what the mind's designed to do. See problems, stress about them, deal with them right now. But if you do that in business, you're destined to be miserable. So you have to recognize that you've got this part of your brain that wants to stress about and address problems right now. But if you do that, you're destined to be miserable. You can be a happy business owner if you learn to start having a healthy relationship with problems by accepting them. Okay, the second issue then is this massive fear of failure that most of us have. And actually, one of the best things that ever happened to me as a business owner was me closing a business down, my first business, because of a combination of me being depressed, me being burnt out and miserable, and COVID coming along. And when I first closed that business down, I went for a period of being more miserable because I felt like a failure. I didn't want to go out in my own town because I felt embarrassed and I felt like people were talking about me. The reality is nobody really cared. But because I went through that experience, what that forced me to realize was the thing that I was most scared of, my business failing and me looking terrible, didn't really matter. It's like, okay, well, now what? Now you can just start again. And when you start looking at the most successful business owners and the ones that are having fun, you realize that most of them have been through tons of failures. I think there's some data. It's like six failures is the average before you have like a really big win in business. But the point is that if you're scared of failure, if you're scared of things going wrong, you will avoid making changes, because all change is risk. And if you avoid making changes, your business is going to get stuck in comfort mode. And what happens with most businesses is business owners get their businesses off the ground. They go through the startup phase. They achieve a level of success where you've got a client base and you've got customers and you've got a bit of a establishment around you where things are working. But you build that based off you working really hard. You build a business that's reliant on you. That's how you get that off the ground. So you end up with this business that's working, but the only reason it's working is because you're not getting paid enough. You're doing the jobs of 3 people, and it's not really a win-win. But because now you've got the fear of failure and changing stuff, you justify to yourself staying in a business that isn't working for you, where you're working too many hours and you're not getting paid enough and you're constantly stressed because you're worried that if you change it, it's all going to go wrong. So that keeps you in a place where you're in a business that isn't making you happy. And that's a problem, right? Because your business needs to make you happy. So we've got to get comfortable with things going wrong. We've got to get comfortable with problems, and we've got to get comfortable with failures, because we need to make multiple failures to get to the actual thing that we want, where everybody is in a win. And your business can only create a win-win for everybody when you're one of the people that are winning from it. So if you've got a business that isn't working for you, and you're justifying staying there because you're worried it might go wrong, it's going to go wrong eventually anyway, because if it doesn't make you happy, you're going to get fed up, burnt out. It's going to be reliant on you. You're not going to be able to sell it. Which leads nicely into my third point, which is the third kind of emotional and psychological pattern that keeps business owners unhappy. And that is making your business work for everyone but you. And again, this ties into human evolutionary thinking. When we were hunter-gatherers, which was 95% of our existence on this planet, we survived by being part of a tribe. And if we got kicked out of the tribe, we were going to die. You can't survive in the wild on your own for very long as a hunter-gatherer. Now, what that means is we develop certain traits. And one of those traits is to not seem selfish, because selfish people get kicked out of tribes. So we don't want to seem selfish. We want to feel like we're contributing. We want to fit in. So as business owners, what we tend to do is feel guilty about thinking about how the business is going to work for us. We tend to not prioritize how we're going to get paid from the business and how we're going to build the lifestyle that we want. That makes it all worth it, by the way, because you're putting in time, money, effort, risk into a business. It needs to pay you a return. Otherwise, you'll end up resentful towards it. But this mode of thinking tries to stop you from doing that, talks you out of doing it. And it leads to you creating a business that works for your team, that works for your customers, that works for the tax man. Everyone's getting paid and it's you that gets the short end of the deal. You're working too many hours. You can't go on holiday without switching off. You're doing overtime all the time because you're clearing up the mess that other people leave. So you have a business that won't work for you. And all of that ties again into that human evolutionary thinking. And if we stay stuck in those three kind of thought patterns of problems are bad and they need to be addressed now. I can't think about, I'm worried about everything going wrong and I can't think about how this business is going to work for me. We stay stuck in those three things. You're going to be one of the majority of business owners that's stressed, unhappy, and has got a business that can't scale and sell. So we need to recognize that these thought patterns are just part of being a human, but we need to override them with some of the tips I'm going to give you now. Otherwise, we're just destined to be unhappy in business. So how did I go from being a highly stressed business owner who had no personal life, spent no time with my partner, to being a business owner that has great work-life balance and actually enjoys the journey? Well, I had to undo some ways of thinking. And I've got 4 key things that I changed. And a lot of it links into some of those points that I just made. But the first one is that I had to stop comparing my business to other businesses as a measure of performance. And again, this ties back to this evolutionary way of thinking. We want to fit into the tribe, so we're naturally hardwired to compare ourselves to other people around us to make sure that we're fitting in, to make sure that we're doing well enough. Now think about how dangerous that is as a business owner, right? Well, no matter what industry you're in, if you just judge how you're doing compared to the best businesses you can find in your industry, you're going to make yourself miserable because there's always going to be somebody doing better. And there's 2 things that really make this detrimental to the mental health of a business owner. The first one is the internet, right? So you've just got access to such a wide pool of information now that you will always be able to find people that are doing better than you, and you will overload your brain with thoughts that you're not doing good enough. So we've got too much data to tell us that. And a great example of this is, I've been weightlifting now since I was 15, and about 10 years ago, I got into CrossFit and started Olympic weightlifting as a kind of hobby. So you do cleans and jerks and snatches. I won't go into the details of it, but I've been doing that for about 10 years now. And I've got to a place where I've got pretty good numbers. I'm not going to be a competitor, but I'm pretty happy with the strength that I've got. But I can go on the internet and I can go onto Instagram and I will find, and I'm not making this up, 16-year-old girls in America that can outlift me. Now, that's not to be detrimental to females, but generally speaking, science shows us that the male body is stronger than the female body and that adults are stronger than adolescents, right? But there's 16-year-old females in America, so 16-year-old teenage girls, they can outlift me. So think about how I could position that in my mind, right? I could say, what I've been grafting away at this stuff for 10 years and I'm useless. I'm useless because young girls can beat me. But that's a silly way of thinking. Like these girls have dedicated their life to it. They've had coaches. They've been specialized in training for it, for many years. So it's fine. Like I can make peace with it. But if I didn't understand that and I didn't think logically, I'd feel pretty rubbish. And the same can happen in business. The second reason that you have to be really careful with doing this is that, again, it comes down to the human mind's desire to be modest, right? And what that means is that you will downplay your own achievements, you will downvalue them, and you will overvalue other people's achievements. So you'll look at other businesses and you'll see all the positives of what they've done, which they'll show you through social media. They're not going to show the negatives, right? And you'll overemphasize all of that, and you'll discount and de-emphasize all of yours. So it sets you up as this double whammy to be unhappy in business. So you've got to be really careful. Like look at other businesses for inspiration and for insights into what's going on and good practice, but you can't just you can't judge your performance and how well you're doing in business based on the competition. You'll just be miserable. Which leads into the second point, which is I've had to learn to not put my self-worth, so how I feel about myself, into the results that I'm getting. Now that might sound counterintuitive, but hear me out. Statistically, you're very unlikely to succeed in your first business, okay? Like businesses have a high failure rate. And again, like there's some stats thrown around out there that you need 6 failures before you get a good hit in business. I don't think that has to be true, but that's like a general statistic. So there's a high failure rate. We basically have to go through failures to get to where we want to get to. generally speaking. So if I'm beating myself up about that process, then I'm never going to get through the failures that I need to get to the successes. And there's another thing to think about as well, which is the success of your business is so outside of your control, right? And I know that obviously you can heavily influence it. And if you do the right things, you're much more likely to be successful and hit the goals that you want. So you've got to work smart and work hard. But hear me out. Let's imagine that you've got a business model a business idea in your head, and it's a fantastic idea. The market's hot for it. You're solving a problem. Nobody else is doing it. And then let's say that you go and execute that idea perfectly. You hire the right people. You put the right amount of cash into it. You maybe even get some funding. You graft and work crazy hard, right? So you execute flawlessly. But a year into it, 2 years into it, a new piece of AI software comes out or something changes in the economy that means that business model is no longer valid. But you execute it perfectly, right? But you couldn't, and it was impossible to foresee this thing. So it was not poor decision making or poor foresight. And that now means that business is a failure, right? It's not going to work. It's definitely classed. It comes into the bracket of failure. How insane is it for you to start feeling terrible about yourself because of that? Because you've done everything right. It's not your fault. Like, just things changed. And this is the nature of business. There's so many variable factors that no matter how hard no matter how well you compose yourself and how hard you work, there is always a risk of failure. And if you're going to internalize that and make yourself depressed and feel like crap about yourself because of that, you're gambling with your health. You're gambling with your happiness. You have to, instead of putting your self-worth into the results you've got to put your self-worth into the thing that you've got full control over, which is how you conduct yourself, how you work, how you approach life, how you approach business. If you approach your business in the way that makes you proud, and you're confident that you went about it in the best way possible with your skills and your knowledge and your resources, and it doesn't work, fine. It's fine. It's a learning experience. You can move on to the next thing. Whereas if you go through it perfectly and it fails and then you're beating yourself up about it, you're going to have poor mental health. You're not going to have the energy and drive you need to keep making the progress to find the success that you're worthy of. So be really careful of that. That's something that I've had to work on massively. The third thing that I've had to undo is, and again, this ties into our mind's desire to want to please other people and to fit in, is you've got to set goals in your business that are genuinely aligned to your motivations, not goals that you think will make you worthy, or goals that you're setting because a coach told you to set them, or goals that you're setting because you think they make you fit in or make you kind of fit in some bracket of successful entrepreneur. So think about the whole reason that you started a business. And for most of us, one of the big drivers is freedom. For most of us that are entrepreneurially minded, we don't want to work for other people. We like to create our own reality, bring our ideas into fruition, be the masters of our own destiny. So we like that freedom aspect. Now, what happens is if you start setting goals in your business that you think you have to achieve to be worthy, or that somebody else is telling you to set, you will start feeling demotivated because you're working for somebody else. You're working for somebody else's goals. And it doesn't feel motivational for an entrepreneur. You have to have the confidence and the willingness to step back from your business and be really clear on, what do I want from this business? What does success look like for me? What would genuinely excite me and motivate me to keep me going long enough and put all the hard work I need to put into to make this successful? And generally speaking, business owners want to find results in a different balance across the 4 F's, which is fulfillment, finances, fun, and freedom. So build your goals around what you want across those 4 things, and also celebrate wins across all 4 of them, not just the financial aspect, because sometimes it takes a fair bit of time to start seeing the financial results that you're worthy of. And then the final piece of new thinking that I've had to embed into my life to be happy as a business owner is the concept of being sensibly selfish. And pretty much every business owner, leadership team, management team that we work with, we teach them this concept from day one: be sensibly selfish. So again, the human mind from evolution is hardwired to want to fit into the tribe, and being selfish does not make you fit into a tribe, right? Selfish people are disliked by other people for obvious reasons. If you think about it from a evolutionary perspective, selfish humans would not help humans evolve, right? They take for themselves and not give to the others. So it makes sense that we would naturally have a level of detest towards that behavior. So we don't want to do it in ourselves. So we tend to put everybody else first, and we tend to not feel confident about putting ourselves first. The concept of being sensibly selfish is you realizing that if you don't think about yourself to a certain extent and prioritize your needs, you will eventually get stressed, tired, burnt out, unhealthy, and then you can't create good things for other people, right? Now in business, You are the owner of the business, and for a long period of time, your business is going to be dependent on you. And if your business isn't making you happy and you're not getting what you want from your business, you will get demotivated. And if you get demotivated and stay demotivated, your team will get demotivated and stay demotivated. Your business will fail. So let's say that you're a very caring person and you create a product that helps people be healthier. So you're very, very passionate about creating this thing because it's helping people's lives. Then you might have this tendency to not think about what you want from your business because you're just so happy about thinking about what it does for other people. Think about what that could lead to. It might lead to you not pricing enough for you to take a wage from the business, or it might lead to you taking on jobs that you don't like doing to kind of float the business up. And what that leads to in the long term is you can't get paid from your business. You're effectively running a charity, but you keep doing it because you're like, I want to provide this thing to the people that I care about. So it goes on and on and on. And over time, you get more tired, you get more unhappy, you get more drained. And you start thinking to yourself, why am I running this business? Like, I'm working crazy hours. I'm not getting paid hardly anything, but I know I get to help these people, but it's not sustainable. It's having a negative impact on me. It's having a negative impact on my family. I've got no money. All of these things will happen, and you'll start to feel resentful towards the business. And eventually you'll want to close the business, or you'll want to escape from it. So you'll try and sell it, but nobody will want to buy it because it's dependent on you. So if you're not sensibly selfish, your business will eventually fail. So there's 4 key relationships in a business. There's the owner, there's the team, there's the customers, and there's the bank account. And if you don't figure out how your business is going to work for all 4 of those, you being 25% of that, the business won't work. So you have to be sensibly selfish. So perhaps instead of trying to fix everything in our business, we need to think about how can we start enjoying our business. If we've got a leaky bucket and we keep patching up the holes, but we don't address the hole at the bottom, the water's going to keep leaking out. And what I see with business owners, and what the mistake I made was in my first business, is we keep telling ourselves that we'll be happy in our business when we solved these issues up here. Once we're making more money, once we've got the new team in place, once we've trained the team, once we've got the new key employee that can help us keep the team on track, once we've got the systems in place, once we've figured out our position in the market and our marketing's better, then we'll be happy, And we just keep moving the goalposts. Whereas actually, the key thing that we need to address is, well, how can I start enjoying this business now? How can I be happy as a business owner? Because if we fix that and we're actually enjoying the business and we're not dreading coming into the business and we're not stressed about the business, fixing all those other issues is going to become easy and enjoyable. So we need to think about the way that we're thinking, and we need to address the way that we're thinking and address the problem of how can I start enjoying the business now so that everything else can fall into place. So there's a few key things that we need to do to actually do that, right? We obviously need to accept that that's the key issue we need to solve. We need to stop telling ourselves that it's external and that when we fix issues, it will be happy, and realize that it's an internal issue. And if we start being happy, then we can start making some serious progress. And we can become one of those business owners that everyone hates because everyone's jealous of, I should say, because we're getting really good results, we're having fun, and we're making it look easy. So the first one, the most important one, is we have to see problems and failures as okay, as part of the process. Think about this. If you do this, if you start doing this today, if you just get it into your mind, if you took a pill and it was like, problems are no longer something that I stress about, failures are no longer something that I'm worried about, your whole experience business changes today. You're going to feel like the weight of the world has been lifted off your shoulders. Because what you've got going on in your mind at the moment, like I had for many years, is this belief that once you get these problems off your plate, then it will be okay. Then you can start enjoying it. And when we think about it, we see how ludicrous that is. Because if you go back in time a year or 5 years, however long you've been in your business, you will find, if you're really honest with yourself, that you were telling yourself the same story, that when you get rid of these problems, then you can start enjoying it. And then you'll realize that all you have to do is replace it with new problems, because that's business. Problems replace problems. So we're telling ourselves this one thing, that I need to get rid of my problems and I'll be happy. But we also know logically it will never happen, because problems are never ending and we're going to have plenty of failures. But if we change the way of thinking and we accept that problems are normal and that I don't need to stress about them, I just need to have a rational way of approaching them, and that failures are okay, they're just part of the process and they're actually just learning on the way to getting our results and our goals that we deserve, you're going to instantly feel like the weight of the world has been lifted off your shoulders. So that's the first key thing that you've got to do if you want to start enjoying your business. You've got to stop stressing about problems. Just make peace with them being there, and everything changes. Everything changes today if you start doing that. The second thing that we need to do then to start being a happy business owner is we need to introduce a cadence calendar into our lives. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail on what the cadence calendar looks like, but it's basically this. It's 2 boxes, one in a weekly column, two boxes, one in a daily column, one in a weekly column, one in a monthly column. And every 12 weeks, we look at those two boxes and we say, what's 2 things that I need to focus on as a habit that's going to make my life better and happier over the next 12 weeks? So for example, that could be in the daily column, 10,000 steps a day and 3 whole meals. Okay, these are 2 habits that if I can incorporate into my daily activities will make me healthier and happier. In the weekly column, date night with my partner and 2 full days without thinking about work. Okay, so it's basically forcing me to spend 1 night a week, forcing me to spend 1 night a week with my partner and 2 days on the weekend not thinking about work if it's the weekend. And then the monthly could be 1 weekend away and to go and see my family on 1 full day, something like that. I'm just making it up on the spot. Okay, why is that important? There's 2 things. First of all, business owners, we tend to be overly optimistic about our time. So when we try to think about our health and our lifestyles, we'll always plan too much. Having only 2 boxes forces us to actually prioritize the 2 things that matter most. The second one is that the business owner mind is hardwired to prioritize work over everything else. Okay, and it's just the way we're hardwired. It's the reason that we can get businesses off the ground because we're obsessively results focused, future focused, and business focused. We're not going to change that about ourselves. It's actually a strength. It's an asset. It's a unique thing. It's why you get bored talking to your friends that aren't interested in business because they're not as obsessive as you. So you don't want to change that. But what we do want to do is stop that coming to our detriment. And the way that we stop it coming to our detriment is we do minimum viable product planning for our lifestyle on our cadence calendar. So for example, my partner and I, we both have a tendency to like working and work too much, and we'll often work in the evenings. I don't want to feel guilty about that. So when we plan our cadence calendar and we say, well, what do we need to not feel bad about that? What do we need to do? What's the minimum we need to do? And we're like, well, 1 date night a week, we're pretty happy. Like if we have 1 date night a week where we just go out, don't talk about work, just spend some time together, it doesn't really matter if we work in the evenings the other time because we know we've got that MVP piece in. So once you put that into your cadence calendar, it stops you feeling like you've got to override your brain, and you can just make peace with, I like working. I can work in the evenings if I want to because I know that me and my partner are happy because we've got that date night on a Thursday. Obviously, you don't have to do it with your partner. It doesn't have to be about relationships. It can be your health. It can be your hobbies. It can be holidays. It doesn't matter. But what it's doing is it's overriding that part of your brain that wants to work all the time and putting in structure around it that stops you just completely neglecting your life to do the thing that you're most motivated to do, which is work on your business. What we don't want to do is get to the end of our lives or weeks or months or years and think, yeah, I did really well in business, but I didn't do loads of the stuff that's important to me. And your cadence calendar will help with that. Okay, the third thing that you can do to be a happy business owner is outright refuse to do what you hate. So it's okay to do some work that you don't like, and it's part of the process of business, like doing stuff, just committing to tasks, getting on with stuff. Some things we love, some things we don't, but you need to outright refuse to do stuff that you hate. The whole reason that you started your business was to not do a job that you dislike and to not be a slave to somebody else. So if you start accepting that you're going to do jobs that you hate, it's going to drain you, and you're actually just going to go against all of the reasons that you started your business for. So the way that you do this is just make it a non-negotiable from right now that you will not do jobs that you hate. So for me, it'll be bookkeeping and accounting and paperwork around finances. You need to make it a commitment that you won't do the work that you hate, and you need to plan from your business model to pay somebody else to do that from day one. Somebody else can do that. So, we pay our accountants and bookkeepers to do all of that for us. They're really good, and I just don't have to think about it because I hate it. And it's just off your plate from day one. Do not accept in your mind that you'll do that stuff for a period of time until you've got a few clients, because it will drain you so much that you will have no motivation to hit your results. So refuse to do what you hate. It will just make you miserable. The fourth tip to help you be a happy business owner that's enjoying the journey is you have to be goal and vision focused. Now, again, the human mind is trying to keep you safe, right? And to keep you safe is trying to do all that it can to talk you out of making any changes, because changes are risk. It feels safer to stay where you are. Now, if you think about your business, what happens to most business owners is we go through the start phase, then we get to this phase where we've created some stability and we've got a team around us, but we're working too much and we made the business reliant on us. So it's not really long-term a sustainable win-win. If you're not goal and vision focused and you're not thinking about what you want in the future and what your business needs to be to make you happy, you're going to constantly justify keeping your business in this stable state where it's not very enjoyable. And it will just lead to you getting burnt out, you getting stressed, you getting resentful towards your business, and you being unable to scale or sell your business because it's so reliant on you. It'll also lead to your team getting miserable. It's a slow burn to a crap business. So the only way that you can kind of override your brain and stop it talking you out of being comfortable is by having a goal and vision that you're excited by, and by constantly reminding yourself of that, so you've got a reason to pull yourself out of this kind of comfort that your brain will try and justify you staying into. And then my final point on how to be a business owner that's enjoying the process sounds a little bit fluffy, a little bit spiritual, but you've got to develop gratitude for the things that you've created in your life for your business, other than revenue and profit. So revenue and profit are really important, and we do feel good when we make them, and we should certainly celebrate that. But they can take time. Sometimes it can be slow. Sometimes it can be impacted by the economy. So if that's the only thing that we have gratitude for, then we're just going to be constantly stressed when that's not there. What we also want to look at is the other things that we've created in our life. So you created freedom for yourself. You've taken an idea and you've brought it into the world. So you've got this fulfillment piece. You're helping clients. You're helping your customers. You've created jobs for people. You can live your life on your own terms. So try and think about these things daily. There's loads of wins around you other than just the finances that you've created through your hard work and your effort and your mindset. So don't forget to recognize and celebrate those, and only focus on money. Because if you do that, you really, again, you're gambling with your mental health, because this stuff's so at the whim of the economy. Look at what's going on at the moment. Donald Trump, somebody could come in and change taxes, which is going to really impact your profit and revenue for a few months. So don't just only feel good about that, because it's just one thing that's outside of your control. Think about the other things that you've created in your life as well. Fun, freedom, fulfillment, career, opportunity, outcomes for other people. You've done loads of this, so don't forget to celebrate that, because otherwise you'll just end up miserable and stressed as a business owner. So if you're a business owner and you've listened to this and you resonate with it, you're like, yeah, that's me, I need to implement these things, but you're already feeling tired, you're feeling a bit stuck in your business, you're feeling a bit stressed, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I've got the effort to make all this stuff happen. I want to just give you four things to frame in your mind that'll help you make progress with these things. And the first one is, ask yourself, what's the point in having a business if it's not making you happy? Seriously, please just ask yourself that question. What's the point in all of this work that you're doing, in all of the time, energy, and stress you're putting into this thing if it's not going to make you happy? And most of us will come to the conclusion that it's not worth it. It would be easier and less stress and more safe to go and get a job. So once you come to that conclusion, it's fine, because it forces you to realize, no, I need to make my business work for me. Or if you don't come to that conclusion, then go and get a job. But most of us, job's not an option. We don't want to be in a job. So we have to come to the conclusion that, no, it's not acceptable. I need to make this business work for me. The second thing that you need to think about then is, and you'll identify most of the issues in your business and come to most of the solutions you need in your business by asking this question: what does my business need to do to be a win-win for the core four? And the core four are the owner, the team, the customers, and the bank account, so your profit and your cash flow. All you've got to do is make your business a win-win for those four. And if it's not a win-win for those four, you've got to ask yourself, what do I need to do to make it a win for those four? Often we don't want to look into this because we're worried about what we're going to find. We know our business is a bit of a mess. We know that the economics of the business aren't set up to succeed for the core four, and we'd rather just not acknowledge it. We'd rather bury our heads in the sand. But I'm hoping that by watching this video, that's helped you realize that's not what you need to do. That it's just fear of failure. It's just this tendency to drift towards comfort and avoid the unknown. But actually, all that's just leading to us not being happy anyway. So we've got to develop this confidence to just look into these problems and emotionally just disconnect from them and just see them as what they are. They're problems that need to be solved, and be confident to put things in place and try and solve them. And even if we don't solve them, or we try the thing that didn't work and it goes wrong a little bit, that's fine. It's part of the process. We have these failures, but it's going through those failures that's going to get us to the thing that works. So please don't bury your head in the sand. Develop this confidence and this willingness to look into your problems and to embrace the risk of failure. It really doesn't matter. Once you've got clear on what the business needs to do to be a win-win for the core four, ask yourself, what's stopping you from making that happen? So if you identify that potentially you need to put your prices up, this is a really common one with small and medium businesses, right? Where we start our businesses competing with the pricing that's the average in the market, and then we realize we're trying to compete with corporates that have got the scale of economics so they can charge less. So we realize that our business pricing doesn't work. So we realize, okay, for it to work really long term, we need to do a really good service or product, and we need to charge more. We need to raise our prices. So let's just say that's you and that's the conclusion you're coming to. Now you need to ask yourself, what's going to stop me from doing that? Because 90% of the time we're going to realize it's confidence. Okay, so we need to get really clear on what is it that's actually stopping me from making these happen or making these changes happen, and What have I got to do to make them happen? And I think that for most of them, this final point that I'm going to give you now is the key to overcoming that. And the final point that I want to give you is, if fear is keeping you where you are in your business, for example, not changing your prices, ask yourself, where will you and your business be in 3 to 5 years? If you change nothing and you give into the fear and you don't make the changes, where will you and your business be in 5 years? If you don't make your business a win-win for the core four, where will you be? And if you're really honest with yourself and you go through that process, you're going to realize that you're either going to be in a business that's failed, that you've closed anyway, or you're going to be running a business that you hate, you're going to be miserable, it's going to have a negative impact on you, your finances, your personal life, your relationships. So the very thing that fear is trying to talk you out of, the very thing that fear is using to try and talk you out of change, which is your business might break, is where you're going to head to if you don't change anything anyway. And I think in business, we have to get into this mind of short-term pain for long-term gain. Like, we have to be willing to lean into our problems and to not let that stress us out too much. Otherwise, we're just destined to end up with businesses that don't work for us, that only run because they run off our backs. So I hope that's helped you think about business in a different way. And I don't just want you to think about what problems you need to fix next. I want you to think about how you're thinking about your business. And if you're not enjoying your business, you need to think, why and how do I fix this? Because the key, really, honestly, the key to you and your business being successful and reaching the potential that you deserve to reach is you learning to enjoy the process. And I promise you, bar very few people, if you look into the best entrepreneurs, most of them are enjoying the journey comparatively to the majority of business owners who aren't. Like, sure, they experience stress, and they have times where, oh, what am I doing? But the majority of the time, they're not stressing about problems, they've got no bullshit decision making, they're making progress, they're thinking about how their businesses are going to work for them, they're cutthroat with making sure that the business works, and they're not letting high levels of stress hold them back and get stuck in a business that isn't working for them. So please focus on your mind and thinking about how your business is going to work for you, and you'll find that everything starts to change for the better if you do that. If you found this video useful, or you know somebody that needs to listen to this because they're feeling stressed and stuck in their business, please do subscribe to the channel and share it with that person that needs to listen to this. If you go down into the show notes, if you know you're thinking that you need to make these changes but you just don't know where to start, you can go down to the link to the fractional integrators and you can book a discovery call with me or the team there. It's not a pressure sale. We're not going to try and force you into buying anything you don't need, but we will help you get clarity on what you need to do to progress your business forward. Because the reality is a lot of the time we just overthink stuff. We make it more complicated than it needs to be, and we need somebody else to give us a bit of sanity and clear thinking so that we can make progress to what we need to make progress towards. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you found this useful, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.